Welcome, everybody, to the City Rev Live podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Augusto, and with me, once again, is my man, my good friend, Mike Castellano. What's up, Mike?
It's so good to be here.
Good to see you, man. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you. So actually, before we get started, I have a question. As a principal, you mind giving me a funny story? Being a principal, like something that you've seen like on campus or anything that just like cracked you up?
Yeah. Every day.
Every day.
Every day kids are doing things that
Oh man, I believe it.
just make me
believe it.
smile, make me laugh.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of me, Jeremy, I for a person my age, like I remember what it was like being 11.
Yeah.
Very clearly.
Yeah.
Like I remember that time in my life. I remember doing some of the things that they did. And sometimes I see them do things and, I'm not happy with it. But in my mind, I was like, amateur move. Amateur. Like I would have done that a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So,
Oh man,
so I laugh every day. Kids keep me young.
kids are funny, man.
You know?
Kids are funny.
Oh, wait. And you know how the kids refer to me?
How do they refer to
They
you?
like me. And when I know they really like me, they say I'm chill.
They're your chill.
I'm chill.
Oh man, because kids, they got the lingo nowadays.
They do.
Do
Is
you
that a
know
good thing,
any of them?
Jeremy?
No, that's good. That's good.
No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
good. That's good. Do you know anything that they're sharing around school as far as like the lingo?
Wow, there's a lot. I mean, fire is still going.
Fire.
There's fire.
There's Riz.
Oh, Riz is great. I love Riz. They do that all the time. So yeah, they try to keep me informed.
Oh
with
man,
stuff.
they're the
Yeah.
best. They're the best.
Yeah.
So with this episode of Back to School, we're gonna be talking about something a little different, which is the transitions as far as going from elementary school to middle school, going from middle school to high school, and going from middle school to college.
Yeah.
And how going through each phase, each transition, it brings its challenges.
Yeah.
But I feel like with you today, you can kind of help us and guide us and provide us some tips, some wisdom on how to go about that in a healthy way.
Yeah.
From helping our parents, with their children.
Yeah, it could be scary, right?
It could
I
be
mean,
very scary. Yeah.
I remember that transition into middle school or high school was a big one too. It's like I was a freshman,
Yeah.
and I was scared that things would happen to me. And, I think what I created in my mind was more than what really happened. It turns out that I made friends and it was a nice transition,
Yeah.
but it's scary for parents too, Jeremy. Parents get a lot of anxiety around those transitions in life. But if we remember what we talked about the last time we met, acknowledge that you're an image bearer of Christ. Like you were made in his image. We've already worked through developing that as a young person, right? And now you're getting into middle school where you're practicing a little bit more, exploring who you are a little bit more. And so it's a beautiful time, but there's a lot of change that comes along with that.
Yeah.
And so I would say don't be fearful. Fearful, anxiety, stress, those things are not something that God would have us to adopt. I mean, if we're truly image bearers of God and we're his ancestry, well, God's king, right? I mean, he is strong and he could overcome anything in our lives. But with that, there may be some anxiety. I would say embrace the challenge. Kids will be anxious if they see you anxious as parents. So, as much as possible, try to make that experience, as uplifting as you can. Partner with the school. A lot of like what we do in our school, we have an orientation. Parents come in, and we actually have kids be the guides for the parents and the new students. So they
Yeah.
start making friends, and they walk them around the school. And so we try to lower that, anxiety that happens between the age groups. But I will say this: when we get into middle school, I would give a caution to the parents. And the phones and devices really start becoming a little more prominent. Social media,
Yeah.
your presence on social media, the amount of followers you have on social media, the friends you have, the likes you have, that starts taking a life of its own if you're not careful. And remember, being an image bearer of God, you already have your identity. Your identity is secure. what happens when you engage more and more in social media is you start giving away your identity. Jeremy, did you know that 90% of females, of girls, they doctor and alter their image, their profile image, online through in social media? 90%.
Oh my gosh.
The statistic is a little lower for guys, but girls do that. Why? Because they're trying to conform their image to what what social media, what the mainstream might say, and we conform to his image, but we start giving away our identity. So that's something I would caution. I would also be very careful about the amount of time. Uh, Social media can be and being on your device can be very addictive, and you see kids on their devices 6-7 hours a day. So again, setting healthy parameters, especially getting into middle school around the usage of your devices. There's a lot of contracts, and I can share some with you that parents can sit with their kids and establish that, and just tell your child, tell your students, right? Having a phone is not your right; it's a privilege. The phone belongs to the parent. The contract was signed by the parent, right? And it is a privilege, and you earn privileges. That's the way I grew up. You want a privilege, you have to earn it. You have to do something to get the privilege. And so proper balancing of time and usage of devices and healthy kind of engagement within the devices is very, very, very important. Jeremy, I ask students what they want to be when they get older. And it's interesting over 34 years how that storyline has changed. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, kids would tell me they would reflect their community. Well, athletes was always a number one answer. And then their community. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer. Those were those are the professions. Now, you know what the number one answer is?
I know it. To be an influencer. A social media influencer?
That's exactly right. Your top 2 or 3 answers, it'll be influencer.
Yeah.
Athletes are still, popular, but influencer is, if not one, it's number 2 answer.
Yeah.
They want to influence. They want to do the very thing that is being done to them through the influencers that influence their life. And where 20 years ago, who influenced me? My friends, right? TV. Actors, athletes, musicians, my community influenced me. All told, maybe 15, 20 people, my relatives, my family, my church. Now, average child, average student, average teen on social media has possibly 70, 80 influencers.
Yeah.
And they're all vying for that time. They're influencing. Some of the things that they're influencing are not healthy. There's challenges out there that you see often, and we do in our school too, where they influence them to do challenges. Many of them at school. Many of them involve vandalism. Many of them involve disrespecting teachers and adults. And they do it because, hey, this influencer has, 3 million likes. And look, I'm not here to say that it's all bad. There's influencers that I follow that are very productive in our lives. I would say, as a parent, step into that space. Be careful. Because if you don't inform as a parent, and Jeremy, I'll say this, that many parents, when they get to middle and high, start thinking that, hey, I'm going to back off a little bit and really let my child lead in the way he's going to select his friends and maybe some of the things that he wants to believe in, and I'm going to just let him make those choices. Well, I'll tell you this, if and when you do that, you're letting the world fill in the gaps. And whereas I had 10 people filling in my gap, as my community, as my influencers, your children have hundreds, if not thousands. And so step into that space. It's not all bad. Set healthy boundaries, and ultimately help your child to make good choices when it comes to people that they want to be friends with and be influenced by.
The transition from elementary school to middle school is completely different, complete 180. Just children in K through 5. I mean, the worst thing that you can get is probably like a teacher's note. The kid was misbehaving, at recess. Somebody stole their lunch. I don't know. But then you get to middle school and you're dealing with more serious problems like bullying, stuff going on social media, like we've been talking about, relationships,
Yeah.
kids having emotional crises. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
talk us through how to manage those challenges when
Yeah.
they surface.
Yeah, it's an important question to ask, and to be aware of as a parent. Now, I'm going to go to the extreme, and I'll work backwards from there. You're always going to keep tabs on your child's emotional well-being. Spiritual well-being is important. There's obvious signs that occur that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
We said it earlier, I think, in the last
Episode.
episode. Yeah, the kids shutting down, kids being, acting lethargic, kids, or your children, practicing a lot of avoidance. I don't want to go to school today. I don't feel good. Those are just triggers for you to just pick up on. Again, we talked about maybe students being angry, right, or children being angry. Their responses are just not what you typically would experience. When I say extreme, just be careful with that. Suicidal ideations,
Yeah.
kids may say, I want to kill myself.
Mm.
And you may think, oh, well, that's nothing. You want to pay attention to that. And so, friends group changing, right? Those stressors, grades changing, right?
Mhm.
Those are things the extremes that you have to be careful for
Yeah.
and be ready to intervene. Again, the alliance with the school is critical. Your educators, the teachers are with the kids hours and hours a day. I mean, all told, they're in school six,
Yeah.
7 hours a day. They know them pretty well. You'll be surprised how many times a teacher will come to my office to say something is wrong and off with his child.
Mm.
And it's an intuition, almost like a parental intuition. Teachers have that. So, make that bridge to the school, create that bridge with the school, come in, and see how we can help together. Certainly, counseling services and things like that we can offer, but it could be a stressful time. Jeremy, unfortunately, in my career as a principal, I've seen diagnoses like clinical depression and anxiety start as early as 5th grade. Into middle school, clinical, and this is not just generalized. And unfortunately, it's a lot of what we talked about already, but it's losing who you are. It's losing your identity. It's losing hope and losing the hope that we have in Christ. And doing it on your own, or worse yet, trying to replicate and imitate some of the bad behaviors that we see, either our friends or influencers online.
Yeah.
It's kind of losing, I call it like losing your way. And again, having that bridge to the school can be a helpful resource, to you and your family.
I'm thinking about this because a parent can see the signs and then approach the child. But the child is completely unresponsive. Like they don't want to open up whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to help. You want to be a part. You want to be more a part of their lives and what they're going through, but they're just kind of blocking you out.
I can say that's difficult.
Yeah. How do you?
That is challenging. When they completely block you out, you may want to start considering maybe taking them to therapy at that point, and stepping in a little bit more aggressively. Normally what I see with students is just, there's a tweak and a change in behavior. A parent could still behave or act as their advocate. Middle school really is a time for a lot of questions. Less solving, I'm going to jump in and take care of this for you, and more asking questions. When did this happen? Why do you think this happened? You and Riley used to be friends. Why aren't you and Riley friends anymore? I don't hear you talking about her. And, with that trusting relationship that happens, between a parent and a child, and that needs to be kind of earned and built. They'll release information.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
They'll start communicating a little bit more.
Yeah.
parents, again, I would fight the urge to be judgmental in that situation. You want to just seek to understand,
That's important. Yeah.
ask questions, keep the lines open. Um, ask a lot of scenario-based questions. So let's think about tomorrow and what it might be when you see Riley again. How might you approach her?
Yeah.
You guys were friends. Like, what might you say to her that could give you some clarity about this friendship that's going to end? For example.
Yeah. It may not be an answer that they need in the moment,
Yeah.
but they just want to see someone that cares, and by
Yeah.
seeking to understand,
Yeah.
that allows that to take place.
And it's a trusted place.
It's a trusted place. Yeah.
Right. My parents here are my advocates. They're here to help me. I'm not alone. I can trust. I'm not going to be judged, and I'm not going to be cast aside. And Jeremy, I'll be honest with you. I did this right most of the time, but there are times where we said earlier in our last episode where parents are busy. I got a soccer practice to get to. And we got to get you there. Could we talk about this later?
Yeah.
Again, careful. A child opens up. You just want to be there as a listening ear.
Yeah.
And if you had to wait for later and you had to take an important call, I would frame it like this. Jeremy, what we need to talk about, I need to dedicate time to this. And I really want to understand after I take this call, why don't you and I go get ice cream, something they like. And I want to spend time. I want to really hear what you got to say.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that, the time is important. I'm going to dedicate it to you, and let's do something that you like, is enjoyable. You're preparing them to be, right, independent, faith-filled, faithful, right, caring individuals in the future. That's the end game.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Can you speak into the transition from middle school
Yeah.
to now high school and beyond?
Yeah. That could be a little more aggressive, because what happens in high school, and I don't mean this to be in a negative context, when you hear this word, you're going to think, oh, that's negative. No, they're experimenting. They're experimenting who they are. They're experimenting with, friend groups and maybe things that they haven't done in the past, and organizations and clubs, activities, right? But experimenting could also not be very healthy. And it's their time to. So as a parent, it might be difficult to see, some of the experimenting that they're doing. And again, you need to intervene when that experimenting is not healthy.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what I did with my girls when they were little. I did this in middle school, and I said to them, and they weren't interested in boys, I don't think, too much, but we would talk about it. It wasn't taboo. We would talk about relationships, and hey, one day, when you have a relationship, what would you want that to be? This is not threatening. It was just a conversation, and they would say things like, oh, I want him to be funny. I want him to,
Yeah.
I want to be, he's got to be my friend first.
Yeah.
They would say this to me as like 11-year-old kids.
They
right?
gotta have Riz.
They got to have Riz, right? they got to be a Swiftie. They have to be a Swiftie, right? They need to. They got to like the things I do, I want them to respect me.
Yeah.
And I said, let's write these things down. And so we would write it down.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, I tell you, I kept that. I kept that in a very protective place, and I dated it. And, later on in life, when they're not making the best choices, and look, we didn't make the best choices at times,
Yeah.
and that spills into a relational, not good choice.
Yeah.
That's when you bring that back up.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we sat and we talked about those great things that you want to see in a relationship? Is that happening? And then when you show it to them,
That means so much.
not like, here you go. When you show it to them, like, is this matching up with what you have right now?
Yeah.
And having that relational kind of thing with it, that's been really great in my life. You'll see that the kids appreciate it. Keeping the lines of communication, as we've stated, open, seek to understand, ask a lot of clarifying questions.
Yeah.
Be a trusted, person in their life.
Yeah.
All of these are really important. Help them to process coping, right? Help them to process thoughts and ideas. In every child, up to about their mid-20s, the prefrontal, cortex is not developed. And that's the area that handles social awareness and reasoning and coping and all of these. Not fully developed until 22. So know that they may have a faulty way of how they're handling things. Obviously, it's not developed yet fully. You're going to help them with that. You're going to do it in a safe way that's going to kind of set the example and the tone. Stick to your non-negotiables, but you're being a trusted person and parent in that situation.
Yeah.
That's important.
I want to ask you the same question that I asked earlier, where as children get older, as students get older, the troubles, the challenges that they face intensify from what they go through in elementary school, what they go through in middle school, what they go through in high school and beyond. As a parent, there's going to be some times where you're going to have to engage and facilitate some courageous conversations. So when would you say, you can speak on that, but when would you say are like the right times when it's like, okay, like we got to talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to address this.
Yeah. I would say to that, have them earlier than you think you need to have them. If it's into those years and you're having those conversations, it might be a little bit too late. Students have devices. Students have influences, as we said earlier. They're exposed to a lot more. Parents need to realize that the earlier you have them, you're setting a safe space to have them, number one. And number two, you're working through it together. It's almost like a scenario-based question. In this scenario, what would you do? And you're practicing. And you're giving them some real life situations that will happen, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I think we fool ourselves as parents when we say to ourselves, we're going to protect this person so much that this will never happen. We're going to put them in the best schools and we're going to put them in the best communities.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, I think we have a responsibility to ask those courageous conversations earlier.
Yeah.
If you're at a party and someone offers you alcohol or drugs, what is your response to that? Think about it and work through it. And practice it. The other thing you may say is create a safe word that if they're in that situation where they need to call you and they use that safe word, it means that they're in some amount of trouble. It means that you're going to pick them up as a parent. You're not going to judge them on the spot. You're not going to tell them, what did you do? I told you this is not acceptable in our family. You're not going to unload on them. But that safe word means that you're going to pick them up, you're going to bring them home, bring them to safety, and then you're going to follow up with the conversations. That's a safe word. That's something that works a lot with families too, but not shying away from it is what I'm advocating not to do. Get in front of it. Jesus was very upfront with where he stood, questions that he had for people, and he would be very direct about those things, and he did it from a loving heart. Same applies to parents.
Yeah. Mike, I like how you said starting the courageous conversations earlier. I think that's so vital because it normalizes that, hey, you know what? From a child to a parent, like we can have these conversations. My parents are open to talking about really deep things. And so going through the elementary school years, the middle school years, the high school years and beyond, like, having that open communication on a deep level, like it's okay.
Yeah.
I do want to speak to, as far as their faith, how do you walk through when their doubts or their questions are presented regarding their faith? How do you walk through that?
So that could be very difficult.
Yeah.
That could be very, very difficult. I would fight the urge to judge. I would fight the urge to have immediate reactive response to that. I would, what did Jesus do, right? Everything he did was out of a place and a posture of love, compassion, humility, care. If they're doubting and they're expressing that to you, that's not a bad thing. But again, dig a little deeper beneath the surface. What areas of your faith might you be doubting? What questions do you have? And it'll elicit a response that, again, you could either respond to, or you can say, that's something that really warrants us to dig a little deeper. And, let's do this together. The Bible really has answers to many of our questions. Let's see if we can't, find, an answer to that.
Yeah.
There. And, I think the message that you give your child there is that it's not bad. God doesn't hate you for doing that. He's not going to, think differently of it. But it's how we act how do we act in response to our doubt?
Mm-hmm.
And normalize that for them. In life, we have doubts about a lot of things, right? How do we work through doubt in our life? There's a process there. We don't leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
I think God demands that we explore it a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
It's in that exploration that I have found a deepening of faith happens.
On both ends.
On both ends. Right. And I think through that process, we become a little more sure of what we believe in, why we believe in it, and how that's such an important part of our life. And it might be a period, a time of maybe some distance. We go to prayer on that. We go to our small group on that.
Yeah.
We go to our pastor there, and we ask for the Lord's intervention in that way, and we keep a posture of, I'm here for you. I'm here to answer questions. We're talking about things that maybe an older teen would go through. But there's things that are, again, you're still going to church. You're still involving them in clubs and activities. You're still keeping them there. You're not removing them from those activities. An older teen, maybe 18, 19, they may willingly create a distance, but you've already set a pattern in their life that you're going to listen, you're going to be there, you're going to help them process, you're going to be their partner in here. You're always going to love them, and you're going to be prayerful about it.
Yeah.
And God will do the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just thinking about the transitions,
Mm-hmm.
elementary school to middle school to high school to college. What I hear you saying is, from a parent's perspective and helping and guiding the child, is to be intentional, to create that and facilitate open communication. And in the process, when problems arise, when questions come up, or their faith is challenged, or they're distant, pray.
Yeah.
Intentionality, open communication, and being prayerful throughout the process.
Right. And you're never alone.
And never alone.
You're never alone. City Rev does a wonderful job of creating a community of people who are there to support you and help you through. Parenting should never be a solo mission. It's something that we do collectively.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say, don't be eager and too quick to solve the problems, and don't mistake a conflict or a difficulty or challenge in life as a bad thing. That's an opportunity in disguise. It's an opportunity to help develop that child to be full functioning, faith-filled, joy-filled, independent person in the future.
Yeah.
And never, ever seize on that opportunity to allow them to have a little productive struggle, because it develops that grit, and you're never alone.
Yeah.
God's always there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Mike. Thank you for helping us kind of walk through the process of guiding our children, going through each transition from elementary to middle to high school and to college. I really appreciate everything that you've shared. And to the viewers, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode, and I hope that you enjoyed it. It's blessed you. Guys, please like this episode. Please share it with your family, with your friends. Subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it. But we'll see you guys back next time on the City Rev Life Podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to the City Rev Life Podcast. Feel free to subscribe and leave a rate and review. We love it when you share it with your friends on social media, so don't forget to tag us at cityrev.church. If you're interested in more resources, download our City Rev Church app and follow us on social media. Have a great day.